palette ranking time. So this video stresses me out every year. But this year, I felt like there weren't a ton of palettes. And the ones that did come sort of came in the last third of the year. It wasn't really a year of palettes, and I can't include a lot of the things that I purchased this year because they were singles, like the Victoria Beckham singles, or the new Half Magic glitter puck in the new color, some other singles products like the Pat McGrath little chroma pots. I did purchase a lot of those this year, but if we're going to stick to just palettes, then it looks like I purchased 32 palettes, or were gifted. So that number seems down from previous years, but there was still, towards the end of the year, kind of an onslaught. So in 32nd place, and again, I am a really small channel, so I don't get sent a ton of products. I'm very thankful for those who have sent me products. But typically, unless it's Pat or Natasha, Lisa Eldridge, or Danessa Myrex, for any of these other brands that are luxury, like YSL, Chanel, etc., I only purchase palettes that I know I'm going to like, that I've swatched in store. So I don't have an extra 20 palettes here that I just hate. The 32 palettes that I have here are actually palettes that I really like because they're either brands that I collect, or they're palettes that I've already tried in store and really like. So in 32nd place, and this is not a bad palette, but it started a trend this year for this brand that thankfully ended by the end of the year, because I was very concerned we were going to get this all year long from my queen, Miss Pat McGrath. And it was her Valentine's offering, which is called Daring Desire. I only purchased this because I'm a collector of Pat McGrath. I wouldn't have purchased it otherwise because I already have all the shades. They were part of last year's holiday collection in the purple palette. And the thing that was really strange about this is that purple palette had come out in, November, December of last year, and then this was her Valentine's palette, recycling some of the colors. It's a pretty palette. The colors are very nice, but it's her American formula. It's very dry. It's in the cardboard quad, which I don't particularly like. The price is high for, it's a little bit cheaper than the Luxe Quads, but the Luxe Quads are made in Italy, and the formula is just so much better, as we learned, thank God, towards the end of the year. So I'm not a fan of this pattern, or of this platform, and I hope that moving forward she stops this, because I'm not a big fan of this recycling old colors in an inferior formula in a cheaper packaging. And this one was so strange because these colors were just used just a few months prior. In 31st place, I had the Nirvana Nectar cardboard quad, just like that one. And again, the colors were used in the holiday palette from the year before. Now, there was more distance between this one. I think this came out in like August. So I guess that helped a little bit. It's a beautiful color story. It's got a nice multi-chrome in there. But again, it's the American formula and it's the cardboard. And I really hope that that doesn't happen again. I'm really pleased to see the direction that the company went in the last quarter of this year, where they went straight for Italy, straight for, multi-chromes and duochromes, and the much better formula, as we'll see moving forward. In 30th place, and I love this palette, and I will say that you're going to see a lot of these from Adept Cosmetics in here, because Adept Cosmetics is one of the only brands that consistently, about every other month, put out palettes. Some of them may be lower, but I really like them a lot. It's just they were really the brand that put out a ton of palettes this year. So, of course, they're going to be, spaced out throughout the list. But in 30th place, I have their holiday release, which is Vivette. Now, one thing I really love about this palette is that it's in their old sizing, which I really like this more than the larger ones they do now. But that's just a personal preference. Their Minka palette from I think 2 years ago is one of their all-time best. This has gorgeous multi-chromes. I mean, that is their bread and butter, is their multi-chrome formulas and their duochromes. The thing that I find challenging with this is some of those bright primary colors. I mean, look at those. Some of those bright primary colors are really, difficult to figure out what you're going to do with. And so that's the only thing that holds this one a little bit lower than some of the other palettes in the collection, is I don't tend to wear primary colors a ton. And that's really with all these Adept palettes. It's really, for me, they're all very similar in quality because they've really mastered their quality now. It's just color story. What colors do you tend to gravitate towards the most? So in the next position, I have Cyborg Choir, which is another one of their palettes. Beautiful design on the outside. And this was a very spring-summer palette. It is really beautiful. I mean, those colors are insane and work so well for like a summery look. I mean, so bold, so bright. It's just that I don't tend to wear this color story as much, but I love this palette, and I think they did a beautiful job. They did with really all their palettes. I mean, they really do their multi-chrome kind of gel formula better than just about anybody on the market. Then coming in at 28th is another Adept palette. Like I said, they put out so many this year. Of course, they're going to have them spaced throughout my set. And this is the Legend of Ardra. Beautiful. Maybe their most beautiful packaging of the year. And again, it really just comes down to the color story. I like this color story just slightly more than those other two, but they're all great. I mean, if you interchanged them, you could really create, which you can do with Adept, but you could really create the palette of your dreams. But there are some really cool colors in here that are a little bit more up my alley as far as bronzy and coppery. So that's where I have that coming in. At number 27, I have sort of my first luxury product, which is one of the new YSL quads. I did not get all the YSL quads. I don't have them all. I have maybe 5 or 6. I know they came out with at least 4 this year, and I only picked up the ones because I'm not gifted them. So I only picked up the ones that, I had tried in store and were a color story that was appealing to me. So this is the Over Orange quad, and it's really beautiful for summer and fall. It's the perfect fall palette. It's just, in this case, I can't wear these colors as much. So that's what keeps it down low. But these YSL quads, the formulation on them and the pigmentation is really beautiful. And that just is fall, late summer to a T. So I really love those. I think I only picked up 2 YSL quads this year, so there's another one coming soon. In number 26th position, I don't think this should be here. I think it should be in its own category, but it is technically a palette that you can use on your eyes, although you use it everywhere, and I like it just as well as I liked its predecessor last year. If I'm just using it for eyeshadow, then this is where it would fall, because I don't tend to do all matte looks. But I use this in so many other ways that it almost is kind of more of a face palette. But it is Blooming Romance by Danessa Myricks. This is part of her Groundwork series. Last year we had Defining Neutrals. This year we have one that's more pinks and berries and browns. But, they can be used on lips. They can be used on eyes, cheeks. These are a really great product. And they can be a little tricky to use. I recommend going to the tutorials to look them over. But if it's just based on eyeshadow alone, then that's why it would fall where it's falling at number 26. At 25, I have the third of the notorious Pat McGrath cardboard quads. The reason this one is much higher is because these shades all were pretty much new, and that is the Opalescent Orchid quad. It did have a very pretty color story of new and unique shades, but it was still the American formula, which is inferior. I still have the same complaints about the packaging and the product as I do with the others. It's just this color story was unique, and these weren't colors that you could find in other, for the most part, Pat McGrath palettes. I don't have that one to show today, so I'm just going to insert it like I did with the other. And that should tell you something, because when I moved this year over here, I had to leave a bulk of my makeup collection in my house. But I did grab everything that I remembered was put in 2024 because I knew I'd be making this series, and I didn't grab that. And so that should tell you, and that's why I'm like, please, Miss Pat, stop doing those cardboard quads. Give us less, but make sure it's luxe. Luckily, everything else Pat produced this year for the holidays is going to be much, much higher on this list. At 24, I don't think these necessarily should be in here either because they're duos. But they are beautiful formulas. It's just, it's hard for me to say these are a palette because I kind of have to use a matte with them. But it is from the Pat McGrath Holiday Collection, and it is the duos. This one is Celestial Jade. Then we have Astral Noir. And finally, we have Petalic Passion. These are really beautiful. It's just they're all metallic, but they are special. They are the Italian formula, so that's why they're higher. These are really beautiful, great stocking stuffers, and I'm glad that she went back to the Italian formula, and we'll see that much later in this series. At number 23 is a palette that I'm wearing today, and I was recently gifted, and I'm so thankful for that. I had tried this brand years ago and really liked them, and then just kind of had forgot about them, but I'm so thankful that they sent me this palette for the holiday season. It is the Nomad Cosmetics Polar Express palette. It is a stunner. There's a lot of kickback with these, and their mattes are still kind of powdery and slightly patchy, but it's so improved from where it was. And their duochromes, as you can see on my eye today, are really spectacular. This is a beautiful color story that covers so many different looks, from burgundies and reds to browns, neutrals, blues, icy whites. So you really get a good value of color selection with this palette. At number 22, we have yet another palette from Nomad Cosmetics. And again, it's really based on the color story because they're all very good quality. This, for me, is the Unity palette, which they did send me in PR, and I'm so thankful for that. This is a really beautiful color palette, and now looking at it again, I'm sitting here questioning, should this have been higher up? Because I really do love the colors down here. It just comes down to your preference in color selection, because the Nomad brand has got so consistent now with their products that they're all good palettes. These are really beautiful. I'm so thankful for Nomad Cosmetics because they're, for a lot of the year this year, they were the only brand that was really consistently putting out eyeshadow palettes, and they do consistently put out beautiful eyeshadow palettes. Maybe slow down a little bit next year for my wallet, but they really do put out beautiful products, especially for an indie, smaller brand. Finally, in 21st position, we have one of two palettes that were new this year. Everything else was either re-promotes or smaller versions of old palettes. This is from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and it is the Sugar palette. This is a beautiful palette. Both the Sugar and Spice palettes from Anastasia Beverly Hills should not be slept on. They were stunning holiday releases, and I know that some people say this looks a lot like the Charlotte Tilbury Christmas palette from last year, and maybe it does. I don't do Charlotte Tilbury. I find her a bit annoying, but it is beautiful. The color story is really stunning, and it's kind of more of the lighter pastel-y version, where the other one, the Spice palette, which you will see later, is more of a neutral bronzy brown kind of story. Both of them are beautiful, and Anastasia from Primrose on, Nouveau, Cosmos, Fall Romance. I feel like there was a Rose Metals, and now these two of the new palettes they put out. The formula is so good. I hope that people don't forget about ABH. So now into our top 20. In 20th place, we have one of the glorious Pat McGrath holiday collections that she went back to Italy for the formula, and I'm so thankful. This is the Quint Dawn Divinity, and it is really beautiful. This bronzy color on the end is stunning. This is a lovely Quint. The reason it's so much lower than some of the others, though, is we have this Quint. Some variation of this Quint comes out with every Pat McGrath collection because it's the neutral one. If you're going to gift somebody something from Pat McGrath who maybe isn't familiar or wants to try something more neutral, you'd probably end up buying this one. But there was one last year, something Sunset in the holiday collection. There was the golden one, Star Wars Quint, that all have somewhat similar color stories. I really like it. It just makes it fall down a little bit lower for me because I'm a collector, so I have those. But it's a beautiful gift, and it would be a great way to introduce someone to the brand if they're not familiar. And of all of her Quints, even the big palette, the little duos this year, this would be the one that would be the most neutral, or say like workplace appropriate, I guess. In number, 19, we have the Natasha Denona Golden Palette. This is beautiful, don't get me wrong. We know that Natasha Denona palettes are going to be stunning. We don't worry about the quality, the finish. It really just is a color preference thing. So last year, I think Yucca was really high up on my list. Xenon was high up on my list and probably should have been higher, because now looking back on it, I'm like, that is a stunner. I don't tend to wear like gold looks a lot. So if you do wear gold looks, I think this would be really great for you. As a collector, I love having it. I do miss some of the mustards and the teals that were in the original gold that this was based off of, but it is a beautiful palette nonetheless. It's very monochrome. You're going to get looks that all look somewhat similar with these kind of palettes. And with Natasha, I like when she did the palettes like Xenon or Yucca. Well, maybe not. Well, yeah, Xenon had three. I mean, it was monochrome, but it was pretty much three colors. I'm thinking more like Yucca or Retro Glam or Zindo, where she would mix cools and warms together and you get a lot of versatility. She's kind of leaned more into these kind of monochromatic palettes now, and I'm sure they sell much better. It's a beautiful palette though, good formula, and so that's where that one falls this year. Then at number 18, we have the other YSL quad that I tried this year. Like I said, I didn't purchase them all, but I did purchase another one, and this is Over Noir. This is a stunner. If you like kind of a dramatic smoky eye look, you cannot go wrong with this. It has the most beautiful transition color, which is kind of a dusty mauve-y pink brown color, but really beautiful. I have another quad that's very similar to this one that sold out very quickly. higher up on my list. So if you like that quad and you like this color story and you can find Over Noir, that is a great quad. I could see like that being fantastic for like New Year's Eve or something where you wanted to just do a pure like Hollywood glamour smoky eye. At number 17, let's see, we have a very controversial quad this year, but I put it higher than some other palettes that I actually wear more just because I like taking chances and I like that this brand did something a little bit different. And actually, the looks that I created in the end did come out looking interesting. I don't know if I would say they were pretty or gorgeous or stunning, but they were interesting. That is the Divination quad from Chanel. This was a very controversial fall release, very hard to get originally. Beautiful colors. People thought it looked ugly or 70s, and I can totally say that it does. And that's part of the appeal. It's almost giving me like if Prada did a matte palette. Chanel, if they did this all matte, and it's just really interesting. I'm not a fan of all matte palettes, but I say congratulations for doing something different and interesting in 2024. Then in number 16, we have, again, another one of those monochromatic palettes that I was talking about, but this one is really a stunner. I really loved I Need a Nude last year, so I Need a Warm is her palette for this year as part of that series, Natasha. And this one has a little bit more versatility than the gold palette, so that's why I put this one a little bit higher. It also has a multi-chrome in some of her really interesting formulas that have been in her later palettes. So that's why I put that one higher. And I know if you're following Reddit or any of the blogs that I Need a Rose is coming either later this year or early in the spring next year. So she's really leaning into at least doing one of those palettes a year of kind of an I Need a Neutral, but like, you know, it's the same as I said for the golden palette. I prefer the ones where she mixes cool and warm and has some originality. You know, I'm thinking like Circo Loco or Pastel or some of those, but I totally get why she's doing this. And with the new formulas like the wet formula or the wet effect or the glittery ones or the new in Roxa, they have the new mattes. These are really exceptional. It really just comes down to color story and what your preferences are. And I don't tend to go warm that much. At number 15 is actually a very kind of similar palette to I Need a Warm, but I think this one is a little more curated and I really love it. That is the Fawn palette from Lisa Eldridge. She sent this to me in PR and I cannot tell you how thankful I was because I love Lisa Eldridge. Her palettes are exceptional. And this one is probably kind of, she's done in the past cooler ones and warmer ones. This is kind of right in the middle. So this is a good kind of everyday palette. And it also has a multi-chrome, and her mattes are probably, if not the best, right up there with the best on the market. These palettes are so exceptional, and so for her to add a sixth one to the collection, I think is just a really awesome addition. At 14 is a palette that I think is wildly underrated, and if you can still find it, I think it would make an awesome gift. I also love the fact that this brand puts its money where its mouth is and does really exceptional, unique products. And instead of just creating a campaign in June and saying we love all people, they actually put a product out that maybe didn't sell well. I don't know. I hope it did. But it is an exceptional entry into this brand, especially for those who haven't tried it. So if you can find this on sale or still available through the holiday season, I think it'd make an excellent gift. It is the Love is Love palette from Danessa Myricks, one of my favorites this year. I made some of the most beautiful Pride looks with this. It's just a really cool way of trying her brand. And one thing she did in this palette, this is hideous, by the way. I get why. It says love is love, but it's just kind of not appealing to me. Its layout, but I don't care. At the end of the day, it's about the product, and the product is exceptional. One thing I love that she did this year is put 2 semi-mattes in here, because Danessa Myricks doesn't typically put mattes in her palettes. The other thing that I love is that she included a base of colors for Pride, and this is one of the best Danessa Myricks colors that I've seen her do. This is a silvery, not quite gunmetal, but it's a really unique color. And so I think if you can get this as a gift, this would be a great entry point for someone into the Danessa Myricks brand without having to do something at such a, much higher price, which obviously we're going to see later, because that is going to be, if not mine, which may be, that other Danessa Myricks palette is not going to just be a lot of people's palette of the year, but that may be one of those palettes that changes the trajectory where palettes go from now on. It's so invented. So we'll get to that one a little bit later. At number 13, I have the Spice palette. This is the complementary one to the Sugar palette from ABH. One of 2 new palettes they put out this year that weren't like re-promotes or smaller versions of old ones. I thought this looked so boring, and it sort of has an I need a nude or I need a warm to it, but the multi-chromes in here are exceptional, and some of the undertones, and I'm not even a warm person. This is a beautiful palette. If you can get this or the other one, or maybe the combo of the 2 on sale, like at Ulta, this would be a great holiday gift. And they're so small and compact. I was really shocked with how much I liked this palette. And like I said, I'm not a warm person, so it was a real surprise to me in the sea of all those warm or mid-warm palettes that came out this year. Golden, I Need a Warm, Fawn, this one rose to the top. Again, don't sleep on ABH. In number 12, I have the final Natasha Denona palette of this year. And I'm not a purple person, but I really did like the looks that came out with this palette. This is the, it's dusty, the Roxa palette. It just came out. This is a really exceptional palette that features some of her new formulas, like her wet look. It's just, again, a preference on color story and what you like, but beautiful purples and pinks. It's just, again, it's based on color story because every one of her palettes is exceptional. The one thing I will say about this one is the mattes are so easy to work with. I mean, her mattes have always been easy to work with, in her MIDI palettes at least. And she's just getting more and more exceptional with them. So this is a beautiful palette. If you like purple, you're going to love it. Even though I hear that some people who like purple wanted it to be more purple. Mix and match. You can take some from other Natasha palettes because it really is a beautiful product. Finally, at number 11 is one that I just tried because I swatched it here in Oklahoma City and I loved it and I got it. And it is the only palette I have from this brand, so I understand that his palettes are wildly inconsistent. But I will say I love this offering. It is the winter offering from Tom Ford, and it is the Black Diamond palette. Now, I know he does different formulas. I'm not familiar with them. I've swatched some of the different formulas. For me, it came down to color story and this topper. This topper reminds me a lot of a Pat McGrath color. It's kind of got a green to gold shift. But this is a beautiful neutral quad that would be really nice throughout the fall and winter. I'm gonna see. I doubt this will show up because it really is a true topper. So it doesn't have a base. Beautiful product though, and that's the only Tom Ford quad I've ever tried, so I can't really compare it to others, but I really love that one. Top 10 territory. We're getting like really nitpicky now because these are all exceptional palettes. Excuse me, good lord. I have Adept's Amy Loves palette. This one is a stunner, again, based on color story, but I love this one. And I'm not even typically a blue person, but I do like cool tone palettes. This is a cool tone palette dream, even though it looks a little bit warmer right here in the footage. It has a lot of deep dark colors, but it has a lot of blues, browns, taupes. Really exceptional. Of all of their palettes this year, liked this one the best, but again, it's based on color story. And I am somebody who, doesn't wear a ton of blue, but these are exceptional. If you can still get this palette, like those are like cool blue, they're not garish. An Adept can do like fun, really bold, kind of festival makeup. But this is an exceptional palette from them. And I think, nope, there's one more from Adept that's even higher up. So good on Adept this year. At number 9, I have a palette that's very hard to get. You could get the YSL palette I discussed earlier, the Over Noir, if you can't find this one. But this is rather exceptional. This is the Chanel Eclat de Nuit palette that came out in the winter and spring. Why this is a limited edition or seasonal palette, I don't understand, because it is very basic and kind of user-friendly, but it has perfect neutrals, and this gunmetal is one of the best colors of the year. This thing sold out so fast and was so hard to get. I think I had to get mine from Europe and have it sent over. But it's the perfect smoky eye palette. It's that gunmetal that really, and the undertones of the neutrals in there, and the softness of that black that separate it from, say, like the YSL one. But the YSL is a good palette as well. If you can't find this one, exceptional product. Chanel, you need to make this permanent. Not really sure why it wasn't. At number 8, I have another Chanel palette, and this one is beautiful, and I think also sold out extremely quick. This was a spring release, winter spring, and it is the Rivage palette. Beautiful. These colors are stunning, and I know that Chanel has new designers in charge of their makeup, and they were trying out some new and different palettes, and some would say to different degrees of success this year. This kind of was a way to bring blue and like the cooler, lighter watercolors into the brand, and I think this is an exceptional product. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Eden Rock from Dior, but this is what I wanted that palette to be. I don't really buy Dior palettes anymore. There was a blue one I really wanted this fall, and I could never find it. Part of that Paris collection, but they can be underwhelming. Chanel can be very light. This one is not. This one has a great deal of pigment, and it is a beautiful way to do icy blues and whites into the spring and summer. I'm sorry that it's probably not available, but you can always look on eBay or Marikai or those other websites and find new ones that probably fell off a bus somewhere, but whatever. We do what we have to do, the sacrifices we make. Number 7. This should maybe be higher. I was shocked. I thought this was going to look like the one from last year. I didn't think that it was going to be that exceptional, and it is exceptional. This is the other Quint from Pat McGrath. This one is called Starfall Seduction. This is a beauty. She did one last year called Lunar Nightshade, which was also very lovely. It was more blue-based. This is more purple-based. This is the purple palette of the year. And this color in the center, it's called Violet Supernova, maybe the best color that she put out as part of the holiday collection this year. It is purple with bright blue sparkles in it. It looks so wet when you put it on your lid. Just exceptional palette. If you can still get it, or if it goes to like a secondhand retailer in a few weeks, I'd pick it up. This is an exceptional product, and at this point it's getting really tight between the products, so this could be anywhere from say 4 to 7. It just happens to fall at 7. At 6, I have the only entry this year that was provided to us from Prada, which I'm sad about. I wanted more, but I do feel we're going to be getting more next year. This is the Platinum Quad from Prada that was released for the holidays. I noticed that it says number 10 Platinum on it, and we already have 1 through 6, which tells me there may be 7, 8, and 9 coming in the new year, and I would love some more Prada color stories. Like, do one based on the lipstick skirt. Like, that would be really cool. Or do one based on like the car prints from, what was that, like 2013? That'd be really cool. But this one is an exceptional color story. The formula is stunning. All the Prada formulas, the Prada quads, are gorgeous, and I know they're expensive, but I gotta say, they're worth it. The product is exceptional. The only reason that this one is slightly lower than, say, the Prada quads from last year these are repeat colors from other quads. So this is kind of like a best of Prada quad, or like a best of for the holidays, presenting you with colors that are really beautiful for the holidays. Exceptional looks you can make. It's just because they're repeats, but I don't mind that. I like having it curated in a set like this. There's a burgundy, rose gold, silver, and gold. This is the holidays to a T, but it could be worn year round. You could do one and then the burgundy, or mix and match. Just exceptional. The Prada quads are fantastic. I believe as far as luxury brands are concerned, the Prada quads are the best quads on the market. And that's even more than Chanel, which I love. It's just something about their formula is exceptional. At number 5, we have the last Adept palette of the year, or the last one on this list. It came out, I think, towards the middle of the year. Flying Fiddles. And this one really just is based on the colors again. I love this color story. It reminds me of fall and winter. It is an exceptional color story. You're getting greens, you're getting blues, burgundies, taupes. It kind of reminds me, there's a new one by Viseart for the holidays that this looks like a much more amped up version of that. It sort of reminds me of the Sunset one they had last fall. But this is just more of an amped up jewel tone fall winter color story. Just exceptional. Again, Adept has had a very good year. At number 4, and we're getting very tight here, but at number 4, I have the new Moonlight Ethereal Eyes by Makeup by Mario. I love this color story. The reason that maybe it's coming in a little bit lower, which 4 is amazing, is because some of the colors are somewhat similar to each other. And you really have to commit to a very cool tone look if you're going to do this. But that's what it's for. This is exceptional. It's just as exceptional as the original Ethereal Eyes. I'm not a big fan of the other Makeup by Mario palettes, but the Ethereal Eyes, I don't know if they're made somewhere different. I don't know a whole lot about that brand. These are the only 2 products that I've purchased from Makeup by Mario. But there's something different about these Ethereal Eye palettes, and I think it's the finely milled texture of the glitters that his other palettes just don't do it for me. But these are exceptional. Really beautiful blue, grays. There is a little bit more kickback. The mattes are a little bit drier than some of the other, high-end mattes on the market, but these are exceptional. For my top 3, I'm going to make you wait just a little bit, but I will put them in a separate video because at the end of the day, they're so close and so tight that I think they're probably all tied for first. It's different products for different people. So I'm going to put that one up either later this week or next week. And they are exceptional palettes that if you've watched my feed, you probably can guess what those 3 palettes are. But if you've enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like and subscribe Unsolicited Advice on Instagram and YouTube. And please use my links and to purchase. It really helps my channel. And that took us through a great number of palettes this year. My top 3 palettes are exceptional palettes, and therefore I think they deserve a deep dive. And so that will be the second part of this video. I hope you'll join me for that, and I hope you enjoyed today. Bye!